This is a podcast about one woman's mission to help entrepreneurs and business owners write better business books. Each week, we tackle your writing excuses, because there are excuses too, and help you beat the blank page of doom so that you can write the book that'll grow your life and your business. Now here's your host, Vicky Fraser.
Hello and welcome to the 1000 Authors Show. I'm Vicky Fraser, and this week I have replaced my husband with the hilarious Twitter star Ryan Wallman. Hi Ryan, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I didn't realise I'd replaced your husband. Yeah, no, that's good. Yep, thank you.
Normally it's me and Joe rambling about, books, marketing and all the rest of it. And and then I interview cool guests in between sometimes. So, and you are one of them.
Thank you.
The reason I've got Ryan on the show for many reasons, not least because he is the funniest marketer on Twitter, but also because he's just published a new book called Delusions of Brandeur, which has had me in stitches, frankly. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to talk to you about why you wrote it, how you wrote it, all that kind of thing. But before we do that, can you just introduce yourself and explain who you are, what you do, where you came from?
Sure. Well, currently I am creative director and head of copy for a small agency in Melbourne, in Australia. And we specialise in healthcare. So we're a very kind of niche specialist agency. And the reason that I kind of got into that niche is because I originally trained in medicine, so which is quite a while ago now. But I worked as a doctor for about 7 years before I kind of decided on the career change and went into writing. And that was now about 12 years ago. So, yes, it's been a bit of an unorthodox path, really, into the industry, but it's been a good one, yeah.
So what made you decide to give up doctoring and go into writing?
Well, I kind of explain this as being from two angles, really, which is that firstly, I had become quite disillusioned with medicine. I was working in psychiatry and I was actually working in public psychiatry, which is a pretty grueling area to be in, to be honest. And so I'd kind of lost my mojo in some ways. And the other side of it was that I had always loved writing and kind of had been a writer, I think, at heart for a long time, even from my school days. So I was trying to find a way that I could bridge that gap, I guess, if you like, and that seemed to be the way to do it. So I kind of looked into whether there was such a profession as medical writing, and it turned out there was, and that's kind of where it started. Yeah. So that's where kind of how I got into it, and I've gone down the route of becoming a more creative copywriter as the years have gone on. But really, I kind of got into the industry through my healthcare background and the fact that I just wanted to be a writer, really.
Cool. And I love that. I love the fact that you had your thing, you had your specialty, and you've taken that and used it to, carry on helping people. And I would imagine you're probably very busy in these interesting times. But yeah, so how did you learn about marketing then? And I asked that because I feel like the book that we're going to talk about in a moment was driven by rage. So how did you learn about marketing, and what has inspired Delusions of Brandeur?
Yeah. There is a bit of rage in there. That's probably true. Look, initially it was through osmosis to an extent. So when I first started working for the agency that I now work for, I learned from my creative director and sort of my seniors and so on, who had marketing experience and they had marketing qualifications, and so I kind of learned on the job in that sense. But then I also did a Master of Marketing at Melbourne Business School, which is a while ago now, but that probably would be about 8 years ago. And it's a very well-respected institution, and some of the lecturers I had are kind of world-renowned. So Mark Ritson, for example, was one of our lecturers.
Yeah.
And so I think I really developed a bit of a sense of of what was what was bullshit and what was kind of what was the real stuff in marketing, and so that's probably where really my sense of the absurd kind of developed, and I realised who the charlatans were, and so that's probably where it kind of all stems from, I think.
Cool. Right then. Speaking of the absurd, what made you write a book?
Okay, so a couple of years ago, I was asked to contribute to another book called Eat Your Greens, which is a marketing, really a kind of an evidence-based marketing book that was put together by a guy called Vima Schneiders, and there are about 35 contributors to that book, and they're all kind of, a lot of them are my heroes in marketing, and some really, really well-known names like Rory Sutherland and Mark Ritson and Helen Edwards, and lots of legends, basically. And so I contributed 2 chapters to that.
Cool.
And that kind of, I guess, whetted my appetite for doing something on my own. And then really what happened was that I kind of came to the conclusion that I'd written quite a lot of material over the years that potentially could be put into, could be put together in the form of a book, because I'd seen other people do similar things. And that was pretty much it. I basically just looked through the stuff that I'd done and thought, there's definitely enough here to put a book together. And that was kind of the extent of it. The planning didn't really go any further than that. And so I contacted a guy I know called Giles Edwards, who is one of the founders of Gasp, who are the agency that designed the book. And I sort of said to him, look, I'm thinking about doing this book. And he said, yep, great idea. And the rest is history, really. So, we kind of collaborated on it, and there you have it.
Yeah, it is a beautifully designed book as well. That's one of the things that I love about this book, because obviously I see a lot of books. I have a and it's really lovely to see a book that is just as different from your usual big blocks of text, and not taken away from the good ones. It's just great to see one that's a little bit different, because you've got all sorts of great good stuff in here, and obviously we'll put a link to your book at the end. But like a couple of things that just popped out at me. The scariest phrases in marketing. Gary Vee said, and that's one of them. Just crack me. Literally anything is dead. So can you tell us a little bit about the content of what you? I'll ask you about the writing process, but what do you hope people really take away from this book? What's your hope for the book that it's going to do for marketers and for the industry generally?
Well, a couple of things, I think. I think the first is that I hope people are entertained, and that's probably I don't expect that people are going to walk away from it thinking that it's How Brands Grow 3. It's clearly not meant to be an instructive manual or anything like that. So I'm hoping, primarily that people will kind of get a laugh out of it. But the secondary part of it is that I would hope that I have been able to debunk some of the conjecture that is unfounded in marketing, and some of the more outrageous stuff that gets claimed, and potentially for people that are newer to marketing, that they might see through some of the Emperor's New Clothes kind of stuff, which seems very obvious to me, having come from a scientific background, evidence-based background. But a lot of people seem to not necessarily catch on to that, particularly when they're starting out in the marketing games. So those two are probably that's probably enough. If people take out that much, then that'd be good.
And you know what? Because I think a lot of people, because I know that people tell me when I say, you're thinking of writing a book, that's great. They're like, I don't know if I've got anything that important to say, and blah blah blah. And I think it needs to be this world-shattering book. And I think it's just as important to create a book like yours that makes people laugh, especially in marketing where everybody takes themselves too fucking seriously.
Yes, I totally agree. That's kind of the advice that I've given to people who have asked me about, whether they should write a book. And I think that's true. I think you kind of expect that it has to be this big, serious thing, which it doesn't necessarily have to be. And there's a lot of room for difference. And that's, incidentally, one of the reasons why we haven't produced a Kindle version.
Yes.
Is because the kind of Monty Python-esque design of the book doesn't really lend itself to that format. So we've very deliberately gone down the path of exactly what you say. It's not meant to be particularly serious, and we think it's intentionally quite different from those kinds of books.
Yeah, and I think that's great actually, because I'm a big fan of putting stuff on Kindle, but your book it wouldn't work on Kindle because it's
no.
too pretty.
No. It is. Giles will be happy to hear that. But yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I also, at this point, need to mention the video that you got, the Monty Python video that you got. I had to sit down when I was watching that. It was so funny. It did make me think. You said you're not going to do a Kindle version, which is, I understand that. Have you thought about doing an audio version of some kind? Because I think the Monty Python kind of theme would lend itself really well to that. And I think you could make it, you just make it absolutely hilarious.
To be honest, no, we haven't. But now that you mention it, that's not a bad idea. Maybe, I'll get in touch with Giles about that. He was instrumental in putting together that song. So yeah, we'll do that.
It'd need a bunch of because obviously there's a lot of visual stuff in the book, so it would need a bunch of editing and like kind of writing for audio. But I think you could produce something hilarious with all sorts of stuff and interjections from other people. And I've just got this idea in my head of how that could be, and it could be hilarious. So totally talk to him about that. Yeah,
okay. We need to get you involved now. You the expert on books. Yep, let's do this.
I'm well up for that. That'd be hilarious. Okay, so books aside, what advice would you have for anyone who is overwhelmed by the amount of bullshit that's thrown at them in the online marketing world? Because it can be, and I know that you kind of said, there's a lot of people out there who, I think people find it hard to think, thinking is hard work. So in like the overwhelming world of just shit being thrown at you, what advice have you got for people to how to figure out what's worth listening to and what isn't worth listening to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think particularly when you kind of wade into this industry, it can be very hard to sift the wheat from the chaff. My usual advice is that you need to study the classics. Mm-hmm. So, I would recommend your friend and mine, Drayton. Read his books, particularly his Commonsense about, what is it, Commonsense direct marketing or digital marketing?
Direct and digital marketing, yeah.
Yes, that's the updated version, isn't it? Yeah. So, you can't go wrong with him. The other thing that I often recommend to people is to do Mark Ritson's mini MBA in marketing.
Okay.
So it's an online course. It's only about 12 weeks. So it's, I think it's 12 sessions. And it's essentially the brand management course that he teaches or used to teach at some of the leading business schools around the world. And it's the one that I did at Melbourne Business School. And, if you knew that and nothing else about marketing, you'd still be ahead of, 75% of marketers. It really will tell you, what you need to know and what's bullshit. So that's probably my best recommendation. Okay. It's certainly in terms of, value and particularly at a time when people, are likely to be cutting back on what they spend and so on. Yeah, that's a really cost-effective way to go about it.
Okay, and speaking of living in interesting times, I didn't want to make this like a Corona apocalypse, episode of the podcast, but the world is going to be a changed place. So, what advice have you got for people who are probably really, really frightened about the business at the moment, especially if they have not traditionally been an online business? Have you got any advice for those people? How they can weather this, how they can come out the other side fighting instead of just beaten and hiding under a rock?
Look, not really. Personally, I'd be remiss to say that that I could speak about this as an expert. And again, I'm going to cite Mark Ritson, and I often do this. Mark wrote a column this week for Marketing Week, which I think basically lays out exactly what marketers and brands should be doing at the moment. So if you look up Marketing Week, Mark Ritson, and I think the title is something like "Marketing in the Time of Coronavirus," and it's a really good article. It kind of says in very simple terms, what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be doing, and and the role of marketing, in times like this. And it's not trivial, because a lot of people depend on this for their livelihoods, and a lot of companies are going to live and die on this basis. So it's not something that we should be dismissing, but it's also, marketing is also not the most important thing in most people's lives at the moment. So I'd recommend reading that. And from what I understand, there are some kind of resources out there for people who are looking for advice. Well, one thing is if you're looking for jobs, because I know a lot of people, are getting laid off and so on. Yeah. Vicky Ross is a really good resource. She's on Twitter, and she's kind of advertising a lot of advertising jobs and so on. Yeah. So that's just at a very practical level. But yeah, look, as I say, none of us have been through this, and I'm certainly not an expert on that kind of thing. But I'm happy to try and link people up with whoever they need if they want to get in contact.
No, I actually think that's really cool advice, because there's a lot of experts popping up with the answer to absolutely fucking everything at the moment, and it's really refreshing to have someone say, you know what, actually I don't know, and here is a good article, and just what I think though, you should be getting people to come and listen to you on Twitter, because we need a laugh at times like this, and and you are a funny man.
Thank you.
You find funny people on Twitter. Mark Ritson also is a funny guy. He terrifies me.
He's hilarious. Yeah. He's hilarious. So Mark, I've said this a few times, probably on podcasts before, but his brand management course when I was studying at uni was like going to a stand-up comedy gig for 3 days straight. He's hilarious.
Oh, fantastic! Well, that's a really good advertisement for his course. Then
it is. Yeah. He's paying me on commission, obviously, but yeah, it's great. Do it.
Well, yeah, definitely. Okay, so back to the book again. How did you? I know you said that you kind of compiled the book from stuff you already had, and that is a bloody brilliant way to write a book. And it's one of the things I tell people to do if they're terrified by the idea of writing a book and they've got lots of problems. How did you go about it? What was your process?
Well, this is another thing that I've said before, which is there wasn't much of a process really. It was, once I'd floated the idea and thought, well, I literally went through all the stuff that I had in a folder, which I called Twitter stuff, and kind of sorted it into general themes, which you would have seen in the book. Yeah. Advertising, brands, marketing, business, and so on, and kind of put them into separate folders. Looked up some of the articles that I'd done and kind of slotted things in according to a sort of a kind of thread, if you like, for each one. And that was it. And then I sent it off. I literally just sent off a whole lot of folders to Giles and said, this is what I've got. And he goes, yep, all right, leave it with me. And that was, it was one of the most random ways to put together a book that you could probably ever imagine, and nothing like what you would recommend, but that's pretty much how it happened.
No, I think that's a brilliant way to put together a book. And this is kind of my whole point, is that you can create a book almost any way at all. There's a lot of people out there who will, like, oh, book in a box, template, blah, 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 get it done in 3 days. And I hate that. It makes my head hurt. But one of the reasons I love yours is because it's so different, and because you kind of just throw a load of stuff together, and it's not, you kind of make it sound like it's thrown together, but it's not. It's beautifully done. There's a load, it all works. So did you just send it all to Giles and he just did it? He made it look like this without you being too involved? How much involvement did you have in it?
Largely, yes. I would be overstating my role in it to say otherwise. I guess the only real design direction that I had was that they came back to me initially with kind of design concepts, and that was really kind of the cover. Yeah. And they had quite a few there. So So that was really the only involvement I had, to be honest. It was that I chose the one that I like best, which is that kind of Monty Python-esque version that you see on the cover. And then, they sort of said, all right, we'll use that as a basis for the design for the rest of it, and sort of ran with it. I think they sent me kind of the first chapter as an example of the design direction, and I was like, yep, perfect. That's exactly it. Let's do that. I don't think I vetoed any of the design or anything like that after that. So yeah, they just got it, and yeah, it was perfect.
That's fantastic when you find someone that you can work with that just gets you. Quite a rare thing.
Absolutely, and they're amazing. Yeah, they're really, really good. The whole process was so easy.
So was the Monty Python thing deliberate then? Was that an inspiration for the design, or did they say it was like, oh, that kind of looks like Monty Python, let's go with that? Which way round was it?
No, yeah, it was. Charles actually said when he sent through the concept, he goes, "Oh, look, this last one is a bit different. It's a bit of a Python-esque feel." And sort of as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, that's the one." So yes, it was deliberate. Not kind of. I don't think it was ever intended to be clearly Monty Python, but it was influenced by it, and it sort of has that feel to it. And I'm a huge Monty Python fan, so it kind of it was obvious to me that's what it needed to be.
I love Python. Nobody will watch The Life of Brian with me anymore because I laugh before the funny bits now. And
it's when you start reciting it before the line that people get annoyed, I find.
Yeah, I do that as well. I don't have any anymore. It's really bad. Okay, thank you, Ryan, so much for coming on the show. Where can people buy your book?
It's on probably the best place to find it because it's on Amazon. Yeah. But obviously all the Amazon international sites are all quite desperate. So the easiest place to look it up is on the Gasp website. Okay. So Gasp, if you Google Gasp Delusions of Brandeur, you'll be able to find it. We've also got a kind of testimonials and some merch and stuff that you can buy on there. So I recommend that you go there first, and then it's got all the links to all the Amazon sites and so on. So yes, that'll be the way to go.
Excellent. I'll put the link in the show notes as well, so people can get that.
Thank you.
That's right. And where can people find you on Twitter?
So Dr._Draper, Draper, like John Hamm, who is my doppelganger. Would you believe?
He is. It's true. Yes, it's true. Okay, so at Dr._Draper on Twitter, and then go to the Gasp website, which I will put the link in the show notes. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for sharing your book process and whatnot. And I'd like to get you back again at some point to talk about, the brave new world that's going to emerge.
Yeah. We're all alive after this, but yeah, that'll be good. No, thank you very much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. I'll be back next week with Joe. And in the meantime, have fun with your marketing, have fun with your business, stay safe, and we'll be back soon.
Thanks for listening. You can find links and show notes on the website at moxiebooks.co.uk/podcast, where you can also sign up for the best daily emails in the multiverse and find loads of free resources to help you write your book. We'll be back the same time next week with more tales from the book writing trenches and the latest on what the tiny sheeps have been up to.